This is Metal Mike, and in this episode of the 80's Glam Metalcast, I talk to a real glam rocker, vocalist Rob Wilde from Midnite City and Tigertailz. We talk about the new Midnite City album that's coming soon and their previous releases, the current status of Tigertails, and we dig deep into different hair metal bands that we got into back in the day and still love now. Check it out. Rob, welcome to the 80's Glam Metalcast. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Doing great. So, hey, I got to ask you. I'm seeing all these pictures of lyrics and microphones, all this stuff. It looks like you guys are in the studio. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, you got it, mate. We just got back together after quite a few months off due to the whole pandemic that's been going all over the world. And we are about halfway through recording our third album right now, the third Midnite City album. We actually started it back in February, and we were making really good progress right before we went out to Australia. We went out to Australia, played 2 shows there, came back home, and the whole world had gone completely nuts within about a week. And we were, the UK was in lockdown, and it kind of really just put a complete stop on everything that we were doing for a while. Luckily, things are slowly starting to get back to normal a little bit. So last week, I was back in the studio, putting down some vocals. I'm in again next week, and we're going to be cracking on with finishing the album, hopefully over the summer, and I'm getting things all wrapped up. So it's great to be back in the studio, because it was, we just had these 2-3 months where we were kind of not really able to do anything. It was just, really frustrating not being able to kind of crack on with getting the album done, really. But we're back into it now, and it's sounding great.
Awesome. Now, what kind of direction are you guys going in? Is it the same as your previous albums? Trying anything different?
It's, we're kind of sticking to what we do. We've done, like I said, this will be our third album, and it's just, it's a hair metal album. That's it. It's nothing more, nothing less. So there's a couple of sleazier songs on this album, touching a little bit more into the kind of glam direction, but at the same time, there's a couple of massive power ballads on the album. There's some really poppy, catchy stuff. So it's kind of like the best of the first 2 albums, and we're just kind of taking everything up a notch. The production's going to be better, the performances are going to be better. I think the songs are better. So it's obviously I'm biased, but it's a damn good album, mate. If you're digging your hair metal, this is going to be your album. That's all I'm going to say.
The one thing that I saw, which I thought was pretty interesting, is I saw the lyrics for the Paul Stanley demo track, Best Man for You. So I take it you guys are recording that song.
No, actually, that's a side project that I'm doing. Okay. I was actually asked to do a guy called Darren Phillips, who's actually an Australian guy. He's kind of he kind of does his they put out music, and basically what he does is he gets different guys from different bands around the world to kind of contribute on different songs. So it's kind of like a one-off thing. I actually met Darren when we were over in Australia in March, and he knew that I was a massive Kiss fan, and he got in touch and said, well, I'm actually recording this unreleased Paul Stanley song from 1989, and it's got I think it's a bass player from Crush, a good friend of mine, Dennis, who's playing bass on it, and I'm not sure who's playing keyboards, but there's various different people playing, different instruments on it. And he got in touch with me and asked me if I'd like to sing on it. So I was like, absolutely. I absolutely love. I'm a massive Kiss fan, massive Paul Stanley fan. So, and I love those unreleased songs that he did in '89. So yeah, I went in and kind of knocked that song out in a few hours. But that's actually that's a separate thing from the Midnite City thing.
Cool. Well, it's great to hear that you're a Kiss fan, because you probably may know about that about me. I'm a huge Kiss fan. Kiss comes up on every episode that we do. And one thought that when I saw that, what it made me think about is how Kiss has so many cool demos that they never really gave a proper release for. Songs like Deadly Weapons, Smoke, Heartthrob, Best Man for You. And I always thought somebody should do a project someday called like One Man's Junk, right? And you take all these throwaway songs and give them a proper recording. So that's what I always thought that would be a cool idea. So I hope what you're working on is something along those lines.
Yeah, it's sounding cool. I mean, I heard a kind of rough mix of what was going on with it the other day, and it sounds really cool. And I agree. You know, I mean, there's so many great songs. I mean, one of my favorite songs from that period that how the hell this song never got on Crazy Nights, I'll never know, is Sword and Stone.
Oh yeah,
it's just. What a song! I mean, how did that not make it on the album? I do not know. So maybe at some point we might crack that song out as well. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a killer one. You know what song I'm obsessed with too? That it came out on Eric Carr's like Rockology, Eyes of Love. You familiar with that one?
Yeah, I've got that CD. Yeah, there's some good stuff on that one as well. Yeah, some great songs on that album.
That would have been awesome on Hot in the Shade or something like that. That's a killer track.
I agree, man. Absolutely.
So let's talk about your last release, There Goes the Neighborhood. I mean, that's an awesome album. Why don't you tell everybody about it who maybe hasn't heard it?
Well, what was really strange about that album was that we put the first album out, which came out at the end of 2017, so it was October when the first album came out. And at that point, you know, we myself and Pete, the drummer, we've been in lots of other bands over the years, but still, to everybody else, you know, it's a new band on the scene, and so we were kind of expecting things to, like most new bands do, you know, to kind of take off slowly and kind of move steadily up the ladder, and the first album came out and just exploded straight away and took us all a little bit off guard. And I think the album had been out literally probably about 2 months, and our label got in touch and basically said, let's do another album and let's put it out next year. So suddenly we were just we'd only just started getting out on the road to promote the first album, and then it was suddenly, right, I've got to write the second album. And at that point, I only had really about 3 songs written. So I started writing the second album whilst we were busy touring and promoting the first album. And the release dates between the first and the second album, the album was released exactly a year to the day from the first album, which is pretty mental, really, when you think, you know, we were touring, plus we actually, you know, I wrote the songs and we recorded and released the album within that 365 days. So it was crazy, really. But, I mean, to me, I love the first album, but I think There Goes the Neighborhood was a step up from it. I think, you know, like with any band, really, I think whenever you do a new album, you just want it. I don't think we're not in a place where we want to turn our back on this type of music. We're not going to do like a 360 and do a completely different style of music. We love this music, and we always will, you know. So we just want to, every album, we just want to just take that next step up the ladder, you know. And I think we did that with There Goes the Neighborhood. You know, we had some big success with that album. You know, the singles did really well. Give Me Love and You Don't Understand Me, and Here Comes the Party, which was the third single. Some cool videos, and then we did a lot of touring on that album. You know, we did 2 headline tours of the UK. We went to Japan last year and Australia earlier this year. Did a ton of stuff out in Europe, and that album really kind of, I think the first album kind of got us out on the scene and kind of made everybody aware of who we were. And I think the second album, There Goes the Neighborhood, just kind of really took it to that next level for us, really. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're ready to, next year when the third album comes out, we're ready to hopefully, knock it out of the park. You know what I mean? So that's the plan anyway, but.
Yeah, man, I love the whole album, especially the songs you mentioned. There's such catchy hooks, and I think also you guys, I feel like you're a lot more authentic than a lot of the other bands that try to do the old style, the 80s style, because I think you live through it more, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I mean, there's nothing, I mean, I'm talking to the right person talking to you. I mean, there's literally, I'm the biggest hair metal fan on the planet, you know. I'm like a walking, talking encyclopedia of hair metal, 1985 to 1992, you know.
Yeah, yeah, man, me too.
Well, and what it is, it's just years and years of absolutely worshipping all those bands and having all those amazing bands as influences and all those amazing songs. And when I sit down and write songs, it just comes out because they're all in my brain. You know what I mean? Whether I want them to be or not, they will just naturally come out when I start writing songs. And Pete, our producer, is great at kind of capturing that kind of the sound that we want. We've got a keyboard player in the band, which there's not a great deal of a great many keyboard players. A lot of bands nowadays have keyboards on tracks and stuff like that. But we have, Sean Charbet, who is on stage rocking the keyboards. We have, an absolute guitar shredder, 80s rock guy on guitar, Miles Meakin, great bass player called Josh Williams, and it's just. We just love that sound, and I think we, like you say, I don't want to sound big-headed, but I think we do nail that sound really well, and I think a lot of people have picked up on that.
Yeah, and I think you're a master of writing those poppy 80s style tunes, and honestly, man, those are like my favorite kinds of songs. And what's funny is that, like, I've talked to Jay Pepper, and I recently talked to Joey Allen from Warrant, and it seems like both of them prefer heavier stuff, and they always say, well, I don't really like the poppy stuff that much. And I'm almost wondering if it's generational, because like I said, we talked a little bit before, and we're about the same age. I love those kind of poppy songs. But what do you think?
Oh, me too. I'm all about the pop. You know what I mean? It's and I know it's kind of like, it's not cool to say that you like that stuff. It's not cool to say you're into the heavy stuff, and I'm really not. I'm not a metal guy at all. And you touched on the Tigertails thing there. I mean, I much prefer singing the young and crazy stuff, and even like Twist and Shake and songs like that, than the heavier stuff. And with Midnite City, I mean, on There Goes a Neighborhood, there was a couple of heavier songs on there, but to me, it's all about melodies. It's all about the pop melodies and the catchy choruses, and to me, that's everything that hair metal and 80s rock, meant to me, really. You think about all those bands, whether it be, the big bands like Bon Jovi and Def Leppard, or whether it be, Danger Danger, Warrant, Trickster, whoever it was, they all wrote these incredible melodic melodies, and to me, that's just in my blood. Every time I write a song, I want it to almost sound like a hit,
Mm-hmm. That's funny that you say Twist and Shake, because I think when I talked to Jay, I had mentioned that song, and he was kind of like, it's okay, but I like, Six Sex, or I like the heavier ones. And right, those are the kind, I like Twist and Shake, and I like a lot of those poppy songs. So we're on the same wavelength there.
Definitely, man, definitely.
So, and last thing I want to say about the album, I love that it starts off with the clip from the Poison video, Nothing But a Good Time, the boss screaming at the guy washing the dishes. I love that, man. I love it.
Yeah, that actually kind of backfired on us a little bit, because when we finished the album, and we put the running order together, and I said, would it be in the second album? I said, we could do it sort of like a cool intro, and I was at the time thinking about the Screw It album, the Danger album with the big intro and all that kind of thing, or even something like, the intro that starts off the New Jersey album, something like that. Yeah. And Pete didn't think it was a good idea. And then I remember one of my favorite albums, again, I'm going to get lynched for saying this, but one of my favorite albums is the second Trickster album, Here. And I remember the beginning of that album, right before Road of a Thousand Dreams, it's like a little speech. It's only about 20 seconds long. I don't know, I can't remember what the actual speech is, but it's taken from a movie or something. So I was like, well, maybe we could just try and find a little kind of speech. And we were going through, I remember we started watching a lot of like 80s movies like Footloose and, Back to the Future and all this kind of stuff, and to try and kind of just steal a little phrase that we could stick on the beginning of the album. And then I just randomly just kind of ended up I was on YouTube and I clicked on the Poison video, and that speech at the beginning, I was like, this is absolutely perfect, especially because, you know, it sums up what Here Comes the Party is all about. So I sent this link to Pete, and he was like, where's this from? And I said, well, it's from, you know, the Poison video. And I remember Pete saying, oh, no one will notice.
Yeah, right.
So we're like, okay, well, let's put it on there, and everybody did, you know, and it's been in all the reviews and stuff, and we actually didn't realize that anybody would really notice, you know what I mean? But
oh man, if you were there, you know it word for word. Get your butt in gear, or you're out of here. Get it, move. You know what I mean? We used to do the whole thing.
Exactly, man. And it was just, you know, even, you know, like I said, Pete, who produces the album, he produced the album, was just, you know, whether he was a fan of the song or not, he was just like, this clip is perfect. You know, it's not too long. It just kind of gets the point across, and it's bang into the song, and it worked a treat. But I actually thought maybe 1 in 100 people would actually recognize that was from that video.
Oh, I caught it.
It seems there's a lot of closet Poison fans out there. That's all I gotta say, you know.
Oh hell yeah! So you seem to be heavily influenced by the American hair metal bands. Is that true?
Oh yeah. Nothing but the hair metal bands, really. You know, I mean, in terms of, you know, English stuff, I mean, I'm a huge Def Leppard fan, obviously, but I mean, I love Def Leppard because they sound American. You know, they do not sound like they're a British band. There was really, I don't really have any influences. You know, again, it's not cool to say that when you know, when you live in England. But I can't think of one English band that's influenced me at all. You know, all my influences, everything that I love comes from the States. Even the sort of Scandinavian stuff, I'm not really that into. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to love Europe, and you know, the Final Countdown, the Out of This World album, I thought were great. But that was it. You know, I'm not overly keen. You know, I know there's a big scene for the kind of the hair metal stuff in Scandinavia, and but I'm not overly keen on that. You know, to me, all my influences come from 80s. You know, that kind of period of late 80s, early 90s American hair metal, you know, and also a lot of pop music. You know, I listened to a lot of pop music, and you know, I liked a lot of the 80s pop music as well, because I think the hair metal stuff was to me more often than not, you know, is pop music with guitars, you know.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I come from, you know.
So let's throw this out there. So why don't you tell me your first glam metal or hair metal purchase that you bought, and your first hair metal concert, and then I'll tell you mine. You go first.
Okay. That sounds, well, it was the same band. I was let's go back. I was 9 years old, and it was 86, and it was a Final Countdown album.
Okay. Which
was obviously Europe, and you know, the thing is as well, which you guys were so lucky to you know, to grow up in that kind of era where you had MTV and stuff like that. I mean, there was nothing like that in England. You know, we did have MTV Europe, but it certainly wasn't the MTV that you guys would have got. So as a kid, you know, without, you know, MTV and without the internet and stuff, the only bands you'd really hear about, especially when I was older, I discovered, you know, Kerrang! Magazine and Metal Hammer and all that kind of stuff. But as a little kid, the only music that I was aware of was the stuff that was actually getting in the UK charts, you know, alongside, you know, Madonna and, you know, Duran Duran and all that kind of stuff. So Europe had a massive hit with the Final Countdown, went to #1 in the charts, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. So I bought the cassette when I was a little kid, and then I got to see him on the Out of This World tour, which was '89. So I was it was a few months before my 12th birthday. It was actually like my birthday present, and my mum took me to the concert because I was too little. You know, I was like, wasn't even 12 years old, and yeah, I went to see him on the Out of This World tour, that was my favorite album from those guys, because that was kind of when they sounded the most sort of kind of commercial American sounding to me, and that night, you know, it's one of those things, you know, that night absolutely changed my life forever. You know, if I hadn't gone to that show, then, you know, who knows, you know, what I'd be doing now. But it was that, seeing those guys and the way that they looked back then, you know, they all had the big hair and the scarves, and they were kind of looking in the glammy period and stuff like that, and it just blew my mind. And that was it that night. It was just kind of, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. So yeah.
Nice.
How about you, bud? Who was yours?
All right, so I'll be honest. I'm kind of sketchy on what my first purchase was, but I want to say it was Theater of Pain when I was 10 years old, Crew. And then concert was when I was 11. My father had to take me because, once again, I'm only 11 years old, was Motley Crue and Whitesnake, Girls, Girls, Girls tour. So what a great show for your first concert. You know what I mean?
Oh, that kind of beats mine. Mine's not quite as cool as that.
Well, hey, man,
that's
one
a
band.
Good one, man.
Yeah, no, that was. I mean, that's good shit right there. But hey, we've got to talk a little bit about Tigertails. Let's start with Stevie James. You told me you played with Stevie. What'd you do? Did you play bass for him, guitar? What'd you do?
I played guitar for Stevie. Okay. Yeah, that was. It's going back a while. It was going back to 2009, I believe. And I was actually back in the UK because I lived out in the States for about 3 years between 2007 and 2010. Moved out to Boston and had a band out there called Sins of America. You know, who did all right, and kind of the underground sort of scene. Put a couple of CDs out. But I was kind of temporarily back in the UK. I was waiting for my visa to come through to get back to the States. So I was back in the UK for about 6 or 7 months. And I remember Stevie just emailing me one day, and I kind of knew him vaguely. We kind of talked a little bit, maybe 6 months before that, because he had an album at the time called My Private Hell, which was just such a killer album. I love that album. I still do love it. I think it's a great album. And I think I was briefly talking to him about that, maybe on Facebook in the early days of Facebook or whatever it was. And then fast forward to 2009, he got in touch and he was putting a band together. He had a few shows coming up, and he asked me if I'd play guitar. And I was a massive Tigertails fan as a teenager. Always preferred the young and crazy Stevie stuff. I thought Stevie was cool as hell. You know, I thought loved his voice and his attitude and everything. I just thought he was a really cool guy, you know. And I loved his solo album. I thought his solo album was brilliant. So I learned the songs, and I played not that many. It was maybe 2 or 3 shows with him. I remember we played in Sweden. We did a festival out in Denmark. And I think there might have been another show, I'm not sure. But yeah, in that kind of brief sort of 6 month period, I actually got, really good friends with Steve. We used to speak on the phone a lot, stayed at his house a couple of times. And, he was a great guy. And then I kind of moved back to the States and kind of lost touch with him after that, which was a shame, because I remember for a while we were actually talking about writing some songs together and maybe kind of looking into doing another album, after the Private Hell thing. But unfortunately, when I joined Tails, he seemed to have a bit of an issue with that, and I never really heard from him again. He seems to, I don't know what the deal is with him, because I in any interview I say nothing but nice things about him, but he seems to have some issue with me. I don't really know why, but I dig him. I bought his covers album that he released last year or the year before, the Time Machine thing, and I love that. I'm a big fan of Stevie James, and, so hopefully it'll be nice to me now. From now on, when he talks about me, I don't know what the deal is. I think there's still some sort of animosity between, the Tigertails camp and him, and which is really nothing to do with me, but that's all I know, really, mate. But he's a cool guy. I really enjoyed playing with him. It was a lot of fun.
Well, the funny thing was the first interview I ever did was with Jay. Jay was nice enough to humor me. It's just somebody who's just getting into it. And, and everything was fine. He told me his side of the story. And then somehow, basically what you do when you're doing this, you're just kind of throwing out blasts, right? You're throwing up something against the wall, see if it sticks. You want to talk sometime? Yeah. Do you want to? So Stevie James says, yeah, man. He goes, hey, and I heard that podcast, and I've got things to say about what was said. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, hell, this is great. This is like wrestling, pro wrestling. We're going to have people, go bickering back and forth. But I don't know, man. I mean, I kind of wish those two would bury the hatchet. I don't know if it'll ever happen.
Yeah. I mean, it would be cool. I mean, I wouldn't have an issue with it at all. I mean, he's obviously Tigertails has got a long history, a very, very long history, and I'm now the fourth and hopefully the final singer. Each singer's been very different from the last one, but there's been quite a lot of band members that have come and gone. But I mean, it's got a legacy. It's a legendary band. And certainly here in the UK, I mean, it was the biggest glam band that ever came out of the UK. The UK never really kind of did that style of music. The UK for rock music was always a lot more sort of, not knocking this style of music, but it was always more sort of the blues rock sort of bands like Thunder and the Choir Boys and stuff like that. And there was never really a full-on kind of, I guess you could say, like a UK version of Motley Crue, and that was Tigertails. So, I mean, we don't play that often, but when we do play, we play to, 3,000-4,000 people, so it's, I mean, it'd be great to get Stevie up to do a couple of songs or something. I'd love that, but he'd have to kind of convince Jay, I think.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. So you consider yourself still the current vocalist for the band? Oh
yeah. I mean, okay. There's nothing changed in that department, really. I think basically the deal with Tails at the minute is Jay's. As I'm sure he probably said in his interview, I think he's got some hearing issues, basically through, like us all, like years of abuse and not wearing earplugs and stuff like that, which, I think I don't know a musician that doesn't have hearing problems, especially if you've been doing it for 20 plus, 30 plus years or whatever. So that kind of put a stop to any shows. I mean, we did, when I first joined the band, I mean, we were touring all the time. We were doing a ton of stuff out in Europe and, did a couple of UK tours. I think also Jay's just at a point where he's just, unless the shows are really, really good shows, and he's not really that interested in doing them, which you can totally, get his point of view, So we tend to just do the odd kind of festival. I mean, we do have a festival coming up in November here in the UK. A big festival, which whether it will happen or not, I don't know. There'll be 4,000 people there, and the place will be sold out, and it'll be great. And I think he just prefers to do those shows rather than 15 shows where we're playing in front of maybe like 100 people or 50 people. And because it can be hit and miss. It can be hit and miss for any band, and we get a lot of American bands over who are. Sold a lot more albums than Tigertails, and still, you go and watch them and there's 50 people there, So I think he just kind of cherry picks the good shows, really, that he wants to play. And, I mean, Tigertails is very much, it's Jay the show.
Right.
In terms of doing stuff, I mean, I'm obviously Midnite City, the priority for me because, I put the band together into my songs, and it's the thing that we've sort of built up. But I'm still very much a part of Tigertails, and I'm looking forward to doing some stuff. When that will be and where that will be, I don't really know. But it's kind of more than anything, it's just really down to what Jay sort of wants to do, really. And we'll take it from there.
So you've also done a Poison tribute band before. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, that was something that was just like to be honest with you, a fun thing that started. The actual initial idea started when I was, as I said earlier, I was living out in the State, and I kind of started putting it together with the original band that I had, Sins of America, to kind of at the time to actually fund recording our album. And I said, well, let's do this and go out and play some shows. And earn some good money, because obviously when you're doing the tribute thing, you earn a lot more money than when you're doing the original thing. And it didn't quite work out with those guys. And then I moved back to the UK, and basically I was speaking to an old bandmate of mine in the UK, and he was like me, a big Poison fan growing up. So between me and him, we put it together, and we've actually been doing it now about 8 years. Wow. And again, there's been a few lineup changes. I'm the only guy left as usual. But we still go out and play a lot. I mean, we'll play probably, maybe 30, 40 gigs a year, all around the UK, and it's easy money because it's a band that I grew up loving. You know, I knew all the lyrics. I didn't have to go and do any homework. You know, to me, it's just a great way of earning quite a lot of money. You know, you earn so much more money, which is all wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't really agree with the fact that tribute bands earn a ton more money than original bands, but unfortunately, that's just how it is. You know, and but it's a lot of fun, man. You know, I mean, we just concentrate on the first 3 albums. You know, so the cool stuff. We don't do any of the Richie Kotzen stuff or anything like that. So it's just, we play all the hits, but we also play, cool stuff like, Look What You Can't Touch and Back to the Rocking Horse, and a lot of the kind of the deeper, like, album cuts, So, and it's just so much fun. We double up with a really cool Motley tribute band over here called Motley Crude, and we basically double up and pretty much play all the shows together. So it's just a great night of, Poison and Motley, and people seem to really, really lap it up over here. It's great.
What's your favorite Poison album?
Favorite Poison album's got to be Open Up and Say Ah, which was, I think that maybe because that was the first album, that was the album that kind of got me into the band. I love the first 3. Native Tongue I really did not like at all. And I was having an argument with a friend recently, and he said, you got to go back and revisit it. And I was just like, and I did, and I still hate it as much as I did when it came out. I just hate that album. To me, it's not even Poison, But I just love I love the first album because it's just so trashy and just in a lot of ways, it reminds me of a lot of the first Tigertails album.
Yes.
It's pretty. It's not that well produced. It's a bit sloppy. It's a little bit punky, but I think it's great. Flesh and Blood was a little bit kind of Poison, trying to be Bon Jovi maybe a little bit too much, and to me the Open Up album was kind of right down the middle of it. I just love just every song on that album. I love it. It was kind of like that album was probably out of any album probably the soundtrack to my youth. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I love that album.
I kind of gravitate to Flesh and Blood because I feel like I love the evolution of the band. You know what I mean? I felt like they just kept growing and getting better at songwriting, and there was some depth that got to be put in there. You know what I mean? There's some pretty deep stuff on that album as well. So I kind of gravitate toward that one. But man, you know what? I was kind of the same. I didn't like Native Tongue at first, but you know what? Native Tongue has grown on me, and I do appreciate it. Is it the perfect Poison album? No, but I do think there is some cool stuff on there.
I'm gonna have to go back to it again, and I'm gonna have to find these hidden gems on there, man. What a funny story with the Poison thing was, they notoriously never really come to the UK. They came to the UK in 1990 they played the Monsters of Rock festival at Donington, and at that point I was only like 13, and it was back then, the Monsters of Rock was a huge outdoor festival, 100,000 people, so I wasn't allowed to go. And they did a couple of little tiny club shows. One of them was actually here in Nottingham at a venue called Rock City, and so I missed all of that. And then literally the only other time that they came over to the UK, and they've never been back since, was for the Native Tongue tour. So they came over in '93 with Richie Kotzen, and they had Enough's Enough were opening up for him. And I was so excited to go and see them because this was like my first time of seeing, without doubt, one of my favorite bands. And I was just it just wasn't really Poison to me, it just wasn't what I was expecting. There was no pyro, it was kind of like which was obviously very much a sign of the times. They were kind of toning everything down, and it was becoming a kind of a different type of band. It was moving away from that kind of trashy glam thing into a kind of a more mature sort of bluesy band, and it was I just remember kind of walking away from it thinking this wasn't quite what I was expecting, so. But yeah, they haven't been over here since, so I think that's another reason why the Poison tribute does so well, because they're still, a really popular band over here. It's just, they just never come over here and play, so we kind of fill that void for those people, I guess, you know.
Well, hey, man, this has been a great conversation. What do you want to say to all your fans out there in closing?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to you, Mike. It's been great talking to you. You know, I love talking hair metal to anybody.
Me too, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show. And, everybody out there, I just want to say thanks for your support. And, like I said, we got a new Midnite City album coming out next year. And, you know, maybe some Tigertails stuff. We'll see what happens. But, make sure you check it out when it comes out. And hopefully we'll see you on the road.
Awesome, Rob. Well, hey, man, it's great talking to you. I have a feeling we'll probably still be communicating back and forth, maybe sharing a song or two here and there, right?
Absolutely, man. Let's keep in touch, and because we could talk for like literally days about this shit.
You got it, man. Hey, thanks so much for the conversation. You take care.
You too, buddy. All right, take care, man.
Well, that was a great episode with Rob. Let me tell you, there are some cool ones on the way, like one with the legendary Punky Meadows from Angel. So the best thing you can do right now is hit the subscribe button. Rock on!